Have you imagined about drinking sake, or traditional tea, or even perhaps wine tasting under the beautiful cherry blossom trees in Hokkaido or Tokyo? I have. I've imagined it a few times. Now, while Western philosophy is closely related to conceptual components of language and logic, it generally involves an attempt to understand reality in terms of words. Eastern philosophy is more concerned with spiritual realization and self-development. End quote. New World's Encyclopedia.org. The dogma of Zen has been transformed itself from a poetic set of type of fictional characteristics of Zen to which it follows the Buddha, or the practice and teachings of the Buddha. Its practice consists of self-disciplinary action and self-discipline within self-control. The ideological practice is also a mixture of Confucianism, which is an art that came from China that went to Japan, and also an influence from Korea to Japan as well, from the New World Encyclopedia.org Japanese philosophy. The Japanese philosophy has evolved from a practice to an outline of ethics and political government that Japan applies to its modern-day government to this day. Many of the philosophical influence that has entered Japan comes from China. And under law enforcement, we can see that with from JapanToday.com category Crime 5 by Amy Chavez, Rocket News 24, the most common type of crime in Japan consists of scamming people through calling them over the phone and asking them for help, for money. Then there are sexual assault on public transportation, is pretty common. And then there is Angel Soa, which is compensated dating. It is a concept that originated in Japan but has been since spread to other Asian countries, such as Taiwan and South Korea. In short, usually involves high school girls dating much older men exchanged for cash, gifts, or simply being spoiled rotten during their time together. The tricky part here is that in a uniquely Japanese twist on something as mundane as prostitution, it doesn't actually involve sexual intercourse. The law enforcement training that the Japanese police undergo is very intense and rigorous cyber training as well to help prevent cyber stalking, which is a very common thing to experience over in Japan. Japan now is one of the safest countries in the world next to Iceland. Its culture and its practice of self-discipline is the reason why the crime rate is so low. Now, from BusinessInsider.com, Why Japanese Murder Rates is So Low, 2014, by Pamela Angela. Quote, unlike the U.S., Japan has strict gun laws. Most guns are illegal, and there are tight restrictions on purchasing few firearms that are allowed in the country. According to The Atlantic, Japan also has rigorous testing and background check process for those who seek the purchase of a gun. To put it all into perspective, the U.S. saw more than 12,000 firearm-related homicides in 2008, while Japan only had 11, end quote. That's from Pamela Angela. And with that in mind, we have to take into consideration that Japanese law enforcement is very strict when it comes to violent crimes, but very easy on small crimes such as sexual assault on public transportation. Now, with the rise of spring that happens in the end of March, which over in Japan, commonly known as Hana May, the cherry blossom viewing of flowers, is also a big party that the entire country partakes in. It's when spring begins, and some even believe that there are dead bodies under these blossom cherry trees, as in celebration. Now, this comes from JapanTalk.com. JT News Hana May Cherry Blossom Viewing by John Spacey. And to understand that cherry blossom trees is a very traditional thing to celebrate. Many people have wine, sake, and tea as in celebration for almost a new year. Well, guys, that's my speech on Japanese culture. Mata ne, sayonara.